Welcome back, folks, to Pits To Podium. It's time for yet another post-race debrief, this time on for the 2020 Bahrain Grand Prix. As always, my name is Soumil Arora, and I'm joined by Kunal Shah here with me. And just before we begin analysing what really happened in the race, I think we should take a couple of minutes to speak about the broader implications, the bigger accident that has got everyone talking, to be honest. Everyone was shaken, panicked, scared, all curious about what's going to happen. And let's be honest, Kunal, you have to step back in a case like this one, and you just have to admire and accept the brilliance of the FIA, their consistent efforts, the way they persisted on. Lots of people call their safety drive a bit stupid, unnecessary at times, over dramatic. On days like this, it really does pay off, doesn't it? It really does
It,
pay off.
it does, absolutely. And, Formula One for us, as you know, Soumil, and for a lot of our listeners as well, it's a family sport. And the least active member of the family for us has always been my mother. But yesterday's crash, literally saw her send me images saying, hey, we saw that there was a really bad crash. Is everything okay? How is the driver doing? Do you know the driver? One of those questions that also come. And I'm just very, very pleased with the way the accident unfolded, how the recovery happened. We know that, when the safety of the drivers that needs to be looked into, there is nobody more trustable than the FIA and various researchers and lots of people, starting all the way from, for example, Jackie Stewart's, Sid Watkins, Charlie Whitening, Alexander Wirtz. There isn't just one person, and thankfully it's not a person or a people-dependent, pursuit of safety. It's a more organizational approach, and it was really heartening to see Romain Grosjean walk away from that crash. Literally, we saw live footage being beamed all across the world. Of course, Daniel Ricciardo not the happiest about how it all went about, but I think overall a great headline story for the safety of how the safety feature of Formula One cars, I would say, Samuel.
Absolutely. Two names that are not often, in fact, barely ever spoken about in the world of Formula One. Dr. Ian Roberts and not Dr. Alan van der Merwe, the medical car driver who also was a Formula 3 champion back in the day. You've got to commend them. The way the response was lightning quick. And we often wonder, do we need so many marshals on the track? Do we need this excessive safety protocols and having fireproof overalls, fireproof underwear as well? Drivers get fined for that too. Do we really need it? The answer, yes, because in the world of motorsport, things can just change in the snap of a finger, milliseconds. And what was the speed of the impact? 155 miles per hour into a barrier. And then all of a sudden it burst into a ball of fire. It reminded me all of a sudden when I saw the crash of two major accidents, both of which sadly did not end well. Helmut Koenig, Watkins Glen back in the day, and Pierce Courage Zandvoort back in the day. Helmut Koenig, sadly, the car went through the Armco barrier. It would be too graphic to describe what happened next, but with Pierce Courage, the car burned down. He was right in there. A bit of both in this case. The car went through the barrier. The car did get caught up in a ball of fire, but Romain Grosjean walked away with only a few minor burns. And the thing is, he's going to be back out of hospital, I beg your pardon, tomorrow. It just baffles me how safe the sport has become. And even Lando Norris has gone out to say that I feel in safe hands with all the consistent efforts that the FIA has put in and all the people that are working at the circuits being so quick to respond and being so good at their job. It's amazing.
It is.
Underappreciated, truly.
It is, and Soumil, I'm so glad that we don't call it a miracle. Yes, his survival seemed like a miracle when it happened, but was it really a miracle? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves. And I don't think it was a miracle. I don't think he survived by accident. For the lack of use of a better word, I would say, because there were lots of factors that came into play for Romain Grosjean walking out to safety, right? And starting all the way from why is a medical car at the back of the grid on the opening lap? We got an answer to that yesterday. They attended him at the crash within seconds of, him crashing, literally. Then of course, there were a few aspects that sort of failed in the whole safety procedure. One of them being the barrier, it just split open, and the second, the car breaking into half, the fuel cell being ruptured. So there were certain elements that will bother the FIA that sort of did not fail in the way they should. Okay, but when certain elements failed, there were certain elements that stood up and saved Roman. Of course, the halo being one of them. The fact that the fireproof overalls, or the Nomex quality overalls that, or rather overalls made from Nomex,
Yeah.
they came into effect. So he actually walked out from an inferno with minor burns. His helmet was intact, his visor melted, of course. So there wasn't just one thing that led to him walking away in the way he did. There were multiple factors. Some of them failed. Some of them took a major, they took the major load of the crash. And eventually we got to see him, walk away in the heroic fashion, that he did. And, you mentioned the doctor, you mentioned Alan van der Merwe. They're all doing this for the safety of the sport. They're all doing this because they know that, what they're doing will eventually come to help a driver at some point of time, and it helped Roman yesterday, Soumil. And just one last thing, something that we also need to all appreciate is the fact that Roman was, in a crash, which was really bad. He was trapped for about 20, 30 seconds in the
Yep.
inferno, but he used all his instinct, survival instinct. He used all his training that he's had over the years to extract himself.
Exactly.
Situation would have been different had he been stuck in the car. Okay, but I was seeing replay footages this morning, and I literally have a view of him extracting himself. That would mean removing the steering wheel, figuring a way to get out of the halo, and then still being aware that here's a barrier I need to cross and get myself to safety.
It's insane, isn't it? We thought that the Halo would really make things worse, and for obvious reasons, it does make it slightly harder to get out of the car. But for what it's saved, I think it's saved a lot more than the trouble it's caused in this case, and even the seat belts for the matter. I mean, Formula One drivers, they were initially against seat belts back in the day, and I remember Volvo recently ran a campaign which showed all media reports, news reports, public opinions about seat belts being, I think, an infringement of human rights by trapping the person in. Of course, by this stage, we all know how helpful seat belts are, but those single press seat belts that can unhook you also quickly, everything just coming into play. As you mentioned, Kunal, all the factors going in very correctly. But let's move away from this. It's hard to. It's definitely hard to move away from a crash of this stature, of this size, and this magnitude. But we shall, because there were other things going on in the race. Not much, let's call it that way, but still a
Yes.
few things. So, firstly, let's keep the Grosjean accident aside. And apart from that, Kunal, what would be your pitch to podium moment from, I think, Lewis Hamilton's 94th Grand Prix win? Baffling. It
I,
amazes me.
I mean, I'll tell you my pitch to podium moment, and it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I
Hmm.
would give it to all the 19 drivers who still decided to sit and race as hard as they always have, raced in their lives. I
Hmm.
would also give it to the volunteers, the marshals, the circuit officials who literally repaired the barrier within 30, 40 minutes of the crash, and worked hard to make sure it was safe enough to give us a race in the following hour. The
Hmm.
FIA, we saw Michael Massey at the site, and I know you said let's move on, but these were all the heroes who then decided that that's it. There is a worldwide audience. There are these two guys on Pits to Podium who are waiting for us to have a race so we can speak about it. And they worked extremely efficiently to fix it. So there isn't one particular driver that would make the Pits to Podium cut. It's a whole host of them. And but yeah, I mean, I would still go with Checo Perez, even though he didn't make it.
Oh, yeah, Checo Perez. It's so. Disappointing, isn't it, to lose such a good result towards the very end with something that's not even in your control? But we shall come to that later on. Before that, of course, we have to discuss the winner. And Lewis Hamilton has now accounted for what 94 Grand Prix victories. Now, when you consider that Formula One's had just over 1,000, and Hamilton's won so many of them, it really blows your mind. But yet again, another clear one. Verstappen was getting close in certain parts of the race, but Lewis still nerves of steel. He held it on from pole position, and there never quite seemed a moment where he thought that okay, he's really going to be in big trouble. There was a slight inkling that Max could come close, but never quite a feeling that Lewis was going to bottle it or lose it in any way whatsoever. He's just been in that situation way too often.
Yeah, I mean, his dominance in 2020 has been so good that now everyone's talking of. Will he reach 13 wins in a season, which is very possible?
Yeah,
Can he also reach 100 career pole positions? Because he scored his 98th career pole in Bahrain.
98.
With 94, I think Lewis 98 wins. So yeah, 98 was the pole positions, and but 94 wins. He is, I think, if we were to have Lewis Hamilton as a team, he would be the top five most successful teams in Formula One. That's just how much his numbers mean. But flawless execution, flawless drive. For all those wondering that he would have gone crazy, partying and not care about the season anymore, were happily mistaken. What can one say? He is unmatchable in every way, and we saw it, one more time in Bahrain.
Absolutely. Lewis Hamilton just by far and away the best. But uh, my notifications have been pinging right while we're recording. Now, I said that Romain Grosjean will be out of the hospital tomorrow, but he's not going to be racing because just immediately while we're recording, can you believe it? The news has just come out that Pietro Fittipaldi will be making his Formula One debut the next weekend in Sakhir. Talk about timing.
Absolutely. I was thinking it would be Nico Hulkenberg, given how he's been a super sub. But for some reason, Haas and Hulkenberg have never found a way to make it work. So it's going to be a Fittipaldi that we will have amongst our ranks, the return of another great surname in the world of motorsport. And understandably, if Roman is unable to race, this soon, and it's also just the two races to go for his Formula One career, so to say. So, welcome to Pietro Fittipaldi. But we'll of course look forward to that when we record
Absolutely.
the Sakhir Grand Prix preview in a few days' time.
Yes. So let's focus on what happened in the race this past Sunday because that's exactly what we're here to do right here. And the battle for P3 Kunal got very intense at certain points of time. I couldn't quite watch the race live, but when I heard of it, I was like, wow, this is some kind of a battle that I should have tuned in to watch. And watching the highlights, everything was just so entertaining. It kept you on your nerves for a certain point of time, but again, could have been better in terms of the entertainment spectacle. But for sure, at certain moments of time, it did seem like there was an element of unpredictability involved.
There was, and like Jolyon Palmer said, it's not always that a two-stopper race ends up giving us entertainment, because yes, there were lots of overtakes and lots of track positions being exchanged. But the confusing part was being on fresh tires, old tires, and so on. So after a point, it was a little too difficult to track what was happening. But some of the drivers really stood out, like Carlos Sainz. He had a rear brake failure in qualifying, started 15th. He was the only one in the top 10 to run a soft tire strategy and then get into P5. I think he drove a fairly good race.
Yeah,
Then Pierre Gasly, he of course ran a one-stopper, which is what Lewis was saying, that we could see drivers going all the way from one to maybe even three stops. So he was of course
exactly.
on the one stopping end, and that gave him a P6, which was good, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo's Renault, and I think he was also ahead of Valtteri Bottas, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was.
And of course, Gasly benefited from the late race safety car. Otherwise, I think he would have probably dropped down a couple of positions at that point. So interesting strategies at play, but not the most entertaining race, I would say, Soumil.
But it's a really popular result, isn't it? Having Alex Albon on the podium, having Lando Norris in P number 4, heartwarming to say the least. And McLaren have made major ground in this battle. They've got 2 cars in the top 5 this time out, and it seems odd to say this in a year like 2020. Of course, had it been 2007, 8, or 6, and for that matter, would have been the most normal thing in the world. But nowadays, the battle in the midfield has become so tight that it's rare to see a proper midfield team get 2 cars in the top 5. So, really has to be a big, big win for McLaren right here. And now, with that, they have overtaken Racing Point in this case.
They have, and it's unfortunate for Racing Point that Lance Stroll was flipped over, and then Checo,
Yeah.
who should have scored P3, of course had that engine blow up, and it is so unfortunate because he was joking on the radio with his engineer saying, "Are you awake or are you asleep?" And it's a little unfortunate that his engine decided to just become hyper awake, if I would use that word, but. I think there is 17 points that separates, and it's only going to get that much tougher. And Soumil, this takes me back to a couple of episodes back, where we've said that McLaren has literally been, a combination of Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz scoring against Checo Perez at Racing Point and Daniel Ricciardo at Renault,
Yes.
and McLaren clearly are not even the fourth or maybe the fifth fastest team on most occasions. Okay. And for them to be in P3 is an overachievement this season. So, they scored 22 points, which is fantastic. And, I'm just excited to see how it all in the next 2 races unfolds. Racing Point will be disappointed because now instead of chasing P3, they might just have to settle for P4. But if anything, Bahrain just showed how fine the margins are. One DNF here and there, and then suddenly the whole championship picture can change completely.
Exactly. McLaren are now on P3 with quite a decent gap to Racing Point, and this battle for P number 3 is only going to get better in the last couple of races. I'm sold in. All the teams have got equal amounts of podiums, 2 apiece for McLaren, Racing Point, for Renault as well. Ferrari have got 3, but let's keep them aside for a couple of moments. But it's interesting. It's very entertaining to see how everything's going out towards the end, and you've got a feel for Racing Point. One result was definitely locked in to be very good until Sergio Perez's engine decided to say, "That's it. He heats too much for me. I'm going to say goodbye." And Lance Stroll got a monkey flipped over. That was a bit of a strange accident, wasn't it? I was told that the mood was very somber when Lance Stroll's car was flipped over because, of course, what happened with Romain Grosjean only a few minutes afterwards, we see something like this. Must have been a bit terrifying at that stage.
Yes, it
With the
was one
same
of those
driver.
moments. Yeah, it was one of those moments where I remember we were in the broadcast studio and we were like, should this race be happening today? Are these signs from life that, okay, guys, calm down, slow down, and, so on. But, we definitely dodged a bullet with Roman. And then what happened to Lance was just a standard, incident. We saw that happen to Nico Hulkenberg, I think last
Yeah.
year. We've seen that happen to Esteban Gutierrez a couple of seasons ago, again at Bahrain in itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Lance's crash was a little more scary than it was because it followed Roman's crash. But Perez, of course, rated this as one of his best races in the career, and he had an MG UK problem. And had the problem not been, he was going to finish ahead of a Red Bull and a Mercedes racing car on
Mm,
merit, Soumil. So
exactly.
a big disappointment, especially if Checo Perez is going to announce a sabbatical or a retirement
Yeah.
or sorts, because it is rumored that he's going to be speaking to the media on Monday evening at about 8 o'clock Bahrain time.
Signs don't seem to be pointing in the right direction, do they?
Especially when you hear that, just a couple of hours before we sat to record, Red Bull has said they are happy to wait till after the season to take a decision on Albon's future.
Which means they'll be taking a decision today. Let's be honest. That's the Red Bull way. They say something, they do something else. That's just what Red Bull is all about. But no, speaking of Red Bull, double podium for them. Verstappen in second, Albon in third. But very quickly, Kunal, before we round off, let's touch up on Valtteri Bottas. We were having big hopes this weekend, weren't we? We were saying that he could be liberated, he could be freed with the championship battle. Everything is poised for Valtteri Bottas to come in and win. And where does he finish?
Well, yeah. Unfortunate, right? Especially when we thought he'll be the one pushing all the way through. And I think this may be addressed in the Mercedes debrief video, if it comes up there. But basis what I've been accumulating, Valtteri Bottas's setup went a different direction than Lewis's. He of course made a claim of this during qualifying, where he said the difference between Lewis and my pace was down to different setups. But in the race, of course, he had two slow punctures. The first of them coming really early in the race, and that's what compromised his strategy. And then the typical thing: can Mercedes run through dirty air? Are they able to overtake and climb their way through the field? Those questions were asked.
Yeah.
But again, post-race, it was revealed that Valtteri was running more wing than the others, and that sort of, didn't help his cause to climb up the ladder. And, we all saw Bottas was stuck behind Kimi Raikkonen for a large part in the race. So, again, a race to forget for him. And thankfully, the championship is, done and dusted. But, it'll be extremely embarrassing if he ends up losing P2 to Max Verstappen, in the next couple of rounds, because that's pretty close a gap as well. And I can actually read out the points. It's about 12 points that separates the two of them.
Yep, 12 points that separates the two of them, and one win between them. Bottas having 2, Verstappen having 1. It's not even close.
It's not close, and just shows how great Max Verstappen is, having as a season. And their first podium in Bahrain since it became a night race in 2014. And by the way, Soumil, Red Bull also sealed second in the Constructors' Championship for 2020.
And that was bound to happen, wasn't it? We all knew before the start of the year that Red Bull would be second. But it's good to apply the bolts and the nuts on it and completely to nail it down as it should be. But yeah, quite a few major implications coming out of this race. As we all know by this point, not the best of shows in the world, but still, it's good to know that motorsport is getting safer. It starts from the very beginning, from the very top in the world of Formula One, and then it gets channeled down. So it's good to see championships like Formula 2, Formula 3 also have these monocoques, the halo, and essentially just the drivers can go to sleep knowing that they're in safe hands. And that's underappreciated, genuinely. It may sound like a cliche, but when it counts, it really does count. But apart from that, Hamilton yet again winning, Red Bull getting a double podium. The battling for P3 in the championship has become all the more entertaining. It's fun. Starker should be a good one.
It should. And, one of the other things that the crash did is, it delayed the race by an hour.
Yep.
And that actually helped Carlos Sainz's soft tires as well as the medium tires last longer as well. So as the evening... As we got closer into the night, actually not even the evening, the track temperatures improved. And, all these things will come into play for the Sakhir Grand Prix as well, with cooler temperatures, a different layout, a faster layout, a sub 60-second lap time. So the next fortnight is going to be extremely, extremely interesting to look forward to as we bring 2020 to a close, Soumil.
Absolutely. Should be very fun. We shall see you folks midweek for the Starker Grand Prix preview right here on Pits To Podium, where we shall discuss more about Pietro Fittipaldi, about what to expect from him, about all the other factors, and in fact, a new layout for Bahrain. We're going to the oval layout, so lots of things to discuss. Join us there midweek for our 5 things to watch out for video. And folks, if you reached here, it's pretty clear that you love this one. Please feel free to leave a like, to subscribe to Pits To Podium and to the Inside Line Formula One podcast. And also, share this one with all your fellow Formula One enthusiasts. Should be fun. Once again, folks, thank you for watching and see you midweek. Thanks, Kunal. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Soumil, and see you guys very soon. Bye bye.